Welcome to TNT Presents Wednesdays night's main event. I'm your host, Kelly Bullock with the Bullock Experience, the Creek Junkie extraordinaire. Our co-host, Kevin, is not with us tonight. He is kind of overdone it with work and stuff, so he is taking a break. But we do have our guest, our special guest for tonight, Mr. Ted Ellenbecker.
How you
And
doing?
he's going to be speaking with us and giving us a little bit of a seminar tonight. So, little change from our pace that we normally do. But hey, we're all for it, and Ted's been gracious to hang out with us and talk to us. So, how's it going, Ted?
It's going good. I just want to tell you thanks for having me on tonight. I appreciate it, and I enjoy talking to people. And
Yeah.
this will be a good one. I hope everybody walks away with a thought that will help them on their next
Oh,
highway
absolutely.
outing. And I think we can get that done.
Absolutely. So, let me say hello to the few people we got in here, and then we'll let you have the floor yourself. We got 351 Cleveland in the house. We got Bugman 22, Hillbilly Hondo. We got Mr. Dave from Double Hook Angling, Buck Williams, Catfishing for Real, and Mr. Murillo Family Fishing. Appreciate everybody that's coming in and hanging out. Just sit back, relax, and at the end of the show, we'll have the floor open for any questions or anything that you all want. And so, Mr. Ted,
Yep.
the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. This is going to be a seminar that basically centers around structure. And I know some of you are saying, everybody does structure. Well, I'll guarantee you not like this. Okay, I think everybody's going to walk away with some ideas and some thoughts that they haven't had to work with before. But that's what it is. Information is really important. Everything you do on the water, all the decisions you make on the water, are made because of information you have. The more information you have, the better decisions you make, your success rate goes up. Poor information, well, we all know what happens with that, no matter what we're doing, fishing or anything else. This is going to center around what I call the theory of three. It's how to understand structures and why some structures will consistently concentrate and hold fish and why some don't, okay? Because if you understand that fishing is a numbers game, okay? And I know that sounds a little strange, but it is. There's one absolute in fishing. If the fish can't find your hook, bait, or lure, you not only will not get bit, you cannot get bit. So to start with, I'm just going to ask you, focus on presenting to fish. Don't focus on catching fish, okay? Because the presentation is what's going to get you the fish. Let me explain the numbers game thing a little bit. There's some things in fishing that we can't control. Days where the fish just aren't biting very well, we don't have any control over this. So I'm just going to use a couple numbers here, just abstract, to kind of point this out. We'll say on a day today, because of the conditions, 1 fish in 10 will possibly strike. Okay? Well, if you present to 10 fish, then obviously you have an opportunity to possibly catch 1, 20 fish, 2, 100 fish, 10. So the whole game is to present to fish and to present to the species of fish that you're chasing, okay, with a presentation that you're comfortable with and confident in. In this seminar, I'm not going to talk about hooks, line, baits, rods, reels, boats, nothing, okay, because I believe right up front, I don't know your water. I don't know your type of fishing. I don't know the species you're chasing at this point. If you have a hook, a line, a rod, a reel, a boat, whatever, that you're comfortable with and you're confident in it, use it, you will fish better. I know some people like bait casters, some like spinning rods, etc., etc. Whatever you're comfortable with and confident in, you will fish better. So we're going to just leave that alone right there. We're going to also kind of break down the water here to start with. A lot of people don't understand why structures work and how to use that info to find the fish you're looking for, specifically the species on the water you're fishing. Okay, now to do this, because this isn't a magic wand or a miracle bait, this is just information. It's a strategy. Okay, Keith Sutton kind of titled that for me, and I appreciate it. He's a good friend, has been for a long time, and he kind of helped guide me through this information a little bit too, so I got to mention that. I'm going to ask you 3 questions to start with, just to kind of get you on board. If you fished much, you're going to be kind of familiar with this, I'll bet. Let's say you're out fishing today and the fish just aren't biting very well. Okay, just not your fault, they just aren't. You look at your, and you've planned out a little bit, and you're where you think you should be, but they aren't biting. You go back to the car, you're all done, kind of disappointed. You look at your fishing buddy or your dog or whoever you're with, and you go, what if? What if I had? What if I did? What if I went? Now, I used to ask that a lot, when I first started fishing. And I always felt kind of bad about that because I thought I was doing something wrong. So the key to this is also focus on you. At the end of the day, regardless of the outcome, you will know you did it right using the information you had at hand, which we're going to really focus on in a little bit. Okay? Second question. You're out in the boat, same scenario, fish just aren't biting very well. And you've tried where you are, and you look at your buddy, and you go, what now? What do we do? At the end of the seminar, you will understand what to do to put you in a better position. Okay? Now, the next question. We all like to spend time prepping for the trip. Most of us, however, leave part of it out. Most of us will look through our tackle box, we'll look through our gear, we'll make sure we're all packed up. But how long do you spend prepping yourself? We're going to focus on that a little bit because you are the foundation for your fishing success. And we're going to explain that in a little further detail as we go too. But everything on the water relies on you. We're going to give a couple examples that may raise some hairs a little bit, but that's fine. You are the foundation. And I'm going to explain here in a minute. I'm going to tell you a little story about why that is, but I'm going to go ahead on this a little bit first. You need to understand, to make this work, the species you're chasing. Okay? What are they hitting on the water? What water are you going to fish? That will give you what you want. Here's what a lot of people do. They see all, on Facebook and everywhere else, they see all these big fish. Well, that's great. And they go out, and if they're especially beginners, they wonder, why can't I catch that fish? Well, first off, you got to make sure that you're fishing the water that will do what you want it to do. If you want a 50-pound fish, you have to be on a water that offers a fishable population to do that. If you want fryers, same thing. You just want numbers, same thing. If you don't care, fine, go put your butt on a bucket and sit in the mud, just have some fun. Each species has preferences. We all know that. Blue cats like some things, muskies like others, northern pike, walleyes, perch, crappie. All these species are different, not only in the way they look, but the way they react in water. So you need to know your species a little bit too, okay, to make this work. So this isn't a freebie. You got to work a little bit at it too. I'm going to tell you a story about why I can say you are the foundation. And I'm going to talk about electronics in a little different way here. I'll probably raise some hackles. A lot of the people that, market electronics, don't get me wrong, I love my electronics. I have 3 in my little river boat. I got 2 great big ones in my big boat. Okay. However, the big thing the hidden message that everybody tries to give you, that market sees, is that these find fish for you. They don't. You need to understand that. These do not find fish for you. None of them do. They don't have a button for that. They don't have the capability. If you go down to the boat dock, and you turn on your boat, you fire up your boat, turn on your depth finder, say, hey, find some fish. What's it going to do? Nothing. It can't. All of these electronics, trolling motors, big motors, depth finders, sonar, side finders, everything. Only show you what you found. I mean, think about it. You point the transducer, you drive the boat. So to get the most out of that, you need to be able to locate water, good water, and eliminate bad water. That's what we're going to work on. And I'm going to give you just a quick story about how you have to do it and not trust your electronics. 2 years ago, I was up at Lake Vermilion in northern Minnesota, and I'd never been there. So we were at a really nice resort, and I thought, well, okay, I'm going to run a muskie guide for half a day, okay, because if nothing else, he can take me out, he can show me around a little bit, you know. I didn't know the lake, right? So we did this, we went out, and he had, of course, a $4,000 electronic system on the boat to locate fish. And he's locating, you know, side imagers, you know, real-time things. And I'll tell you what, they're very cool. They are. But there's an issue with them. They take away your ability to make decisions. And I found that out with this guy. He's a guide, professional guide. Okay. The first place we went, well, first we had a southern wind coming. Okay. And Lake Vermilion up there, if you're familiar with it, there's literally like 300 small islands on this lake. Okay. And the first place we went was an area where the south wind was blowing through two smaller islands that were like maybe 150 feet apart, and they're getting some current through there. So we pulled up on the downwind side and we started scanning the shoulders of this where the water's coming through, and we picked up a big fish. I don't know if it was a muskie or a northern, but it was a big fish. And my daughter was with us. So we said, okay, you know, Dory, we want you, we're going to put you in position. We're going to point where this fish is. We want you to cast about 30 feet past him. Okay. This fish was suspended in 35 foot of water. He was about 13 foot down, 12 or 13 foot down. So we pictured out and said, okay, he's directly 3 o'clock to you, you know, or 3 o'clock to the boat. You're going to have to hit about 60 feet. So she hit the bait, perfect cast. And the guide's going, okay, let it drop, let it drop, let it drop. Reel, 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 reel. And we're watching the screen. We can see this fish turn and follow the lure. You know, pretty cool. Never got him. We thought he was gonna, like the two merged. I think he was swimming beside it, or he was just going up behind it, nudging it, but he never struck. But the story ends that at this point, we took off and we started using this equipment, scanning bay mouths, points, fronts of weed lines, some little gravel bars, everything else. Never saw another big fish. And here's the problem. This guy was so entranced in this piece of electronics, he never even thought about going back to the islands. He lost complete sight of what he should have done. We had 300, everywhere you are on that lake, you can see 4 or 5 islands. Okay, now islands don't necessarily meet to you, but is what I'm saying. Once you find a pattern, don't be blinded by electronics or anybody else's word. You follow what you think you should follow. Okay, he never went back to it, and I never understood that. You know, he should have, obviously. And so anyway, you're important. You got it. Now, there's a couple of things that, well, you need to know that information has to make sense to you to do you any good, okay? And I'm just going to go into this since we're talking about structure. I'm going to do this for you. You know, a lot of people right now don't even understand what structure really is. And if you don't have a foundation under your house, how is your house supposed to stand? You know, in the 1950s, there's a freshwater angler that was talking to a magazine writer, I'm guessing, or an author of some sort, and he said, well, you know, if it's touching bottom, it's structured. Okay? And then about 10 years later, there's a saltwater angler that was asked the same question or got into a discussion with somebody that was writing an article. And he said, no, if it's a change in the bottom, it's structure. I want to show you something. I'll let you answer this for yourself. Can you tell me what this is? Not a trick question. This fell out of a tree in my backyard. Okay, this is a stick. It's made out of wood. And this came out of, I'll give you a clue, this came out of my rock garden. Okay, so we got a stick and a rock. So according to the one definition, if this was laying in the bottom of the lake or on the bottom of the river, and this were laying on the bottom of the lake or the bottom of the river, according to that, these would be structures. I would ask right now, how many fishermen in a boat, if you stubbed your toe on this, you said, oh, I stubbed my toe on a structure? Nobody. If you were fishing a pile of rock on the north end of a lake, and you were talking to somebody and you said, well, I'm fishing a structure up on the north end, what would they do? They go, oh, what structure? And then you just explain, well, the rock pile, or the rocky shoreline or the rocky point. And they go, oh, okay, see? So to say this is a structure really is useless. That's my point. And that's the the definition of if it's a hump, same thing. If you got a hump and you're fishing it and you go to your buddy and say, I was fishing structure, he's going to ask you, what? What structure? Then you're going to have to say the hump, obviously. See, so that information doesn't make sense. It doesn't serve a purpose, and it doesn't do you any good. But when you know what a structure is and how to utilize that, it changes everything. And that's what we're going to start doing right now. Okay? There are a few definitions we've already gone through. And I want to get into the other one here. We did rock. Yep. Okay. If they aren't structures, what are they? Besides being a rock and a stick. They're elements. What's the definition of an element? Definition of an element, if you look it up, is simply a piece or part of something. Now elements can be lots of things, and we're going to cover that. We're going to discover the 4 different areas of elements there are in every body of water. But you need to understand every body of water is different. Okay, some will have certain elements, some won't. However, there are certain elements that just exist, well, everywhere. And that would be what we're going to deal with. Number 1, the first element is just called inherent elements. And it's pretty obvious. It's the shoreline, the terra firma, the bottom, the water, and the air. Every body of water has them. But believe it or not, if they aren't connected to another element, they don't do you any good. Picture a pan, a lake, the shape of a pan. Okay? No structures, nothing in there, no other elements involved, no wind, no sun, nothing. And you dump some fish in there, what are they going to do? They're going to scatter all over the place because there's nothing to concentrate and hold them. Okay, so even these elements, even though they are the largest elements, obviously, and they're in every water, have to have connection to another element to really do you any good. And we'll explain that as we go. At this point, also understand every species has elements that it prefers in given bodies of water. Okay, whether it's like bulrushes, whether it's rock points, whether it's channels, whether it's old road beds, whether it's riprap, whatever, trees, log jams, current, all of these are elements. They make up that body of water that day. And this is where people need to stop before they fish and just look. What is happening today? And I'm going to give you an example of how that went. My daughter, Dory, she caught her 2-pound line class world record channel cat. We pulled up to the body of water, and I said, okay, where do you want to go? And she said, she stopped. She got out of the car, and she looked around a little bit. And she said, I want to go over there on that side. Okay, why? There's more happening over there. There was a little bit of wind blowing in there. There was some fish working the shoreline. There was a little rock riprap on the other side. There's a little stream or not a stream, but like a little spring that comes in through the rock. Okay? Makes sense. A lot of elements. The rest of the lake was completely quiet. There was nothing going on. No fish surfacing, no birds along the shoreline chasing anything, nothing. Okay? So look, pay attention to what you're doing. But you need to know what elements in that water refer or activate, attract the fish you're looking for. Okay. And the second set of elements is a cluster element. Now, a cluster element can be a lot of things. It's basically just its size. Okay. Like we'll say flooded timber in a reservoir, where the whole bay is full of flooded timber. That's a cluster element. Okay. It's a wood element. It's a cluster element. It's big. It takes up a lot of space. It could be a bay full of bulrushes. It could be a mile and a half of riprap. It could be an old river channel, an old road bed that runs for a mile down the road or down the river or across the lake. Okay, that's a cluster element. It's big. A series of wing dikes. If you got, say, 4, 5, 6 wing dikes, where they hit corners and stuff, or they're diverting the water flow, that's a cluster element. Now, cluster elements will obviously hold fish, but there's a problem with a big cluster element. The fish are not concentrated. They could be anywhere. Let's say you got standing timber in a bay. You got 5 acres of standing timber. You're going to take a long time to find some fish because they can be sitting just about anywhere. The trick is to find where that cluster element, where it connects to another element. Like say on the wing dikes, you're going around the point. Well, the channel is obviously going to be there. Behind, downstream of that wing dike, there's going to be basically a mud hump, where it builds up between the wing dikes. You guys know where that is. Up above, there's going to be, and down below, there's going to be a great big washout hole, which are obviously, they are actually overfished, by the way. But see, so there's lots of things going on there. And what you need to find is the point of contact, not just the element, but where does this element connect with this element? That's going to be your power point, okay? Because the fish that are looking, we'll just say the fish that are looking for the channel, okay? But you got a point coming out to the channel, or you got a tree laying over the top of the channel, or you got an old bridge. See, now they can be here, they can be here. But for the theory of 3, you want 3 elements, okay? Now the third type of element is a common element. And these, I don't know, it's almost not even worth explaining, but I have to. A common element can be absolutely anything. It can be wind, it can be water, it can be sun, it can be shade, it can be docks, it can be boat lifts, it can be swimming beaches, it can be points, it can be humps, it can be, weed beds, anything, riprap, okay? But the problem is, it is common, and it doesn't have a lot of power by itself. Now I'm going to start talking about power in the element and power in the structure. All are not created equal at all. Okay, you need to focus and create a structure that is absolutely capable of concentrating and holding fish. Now so how do you gain power? Okay. Well, first I'm just going to define structure to you. What is a structure? Then, if you guys ever watched one of my seminars, you'll know it, or if you've watched the video on Amazon, you'll know it. A structure is a combination or relationship of elements in the given body of water that have a capability to concentrate and hold fish. That's a structure. Picture a house. A house is a structure. It has a living room, a bedroom, basement, laundry room, windows, doors, upstairs, downstairs. A lot of elements in that house to build that structure, okay? And it's the same thing in the water. The more elements involved to a point, will concentrate and focus more fish in your area, okay? But you need the elements to gain power. And that is called a high-powered element. Sounds silly, but it isn't. But a high-powered element, to have that power, has to have a couple of things going for it. Number one, it has to have size and mass. And I'll explain that real quick for you. Let's say we take this stick, who some people think is a structure, and we lay it out in the bay. Okay. How many fish are going to concentrate and focus on this element. What, maybe a couple minnows swimming by, maybe, not much. Maybe one leech hanging off the end here. And it's a wood element, okay? But now there's other wood elements. Let's say you throw this away and you lay down a 30-foot cottonwood. Now that element has some power, okay? It has size, it has mass, okay? It has some power. Now I will tell you something about wood elements right off the bat. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Stangy and Toad Smith from back, the Catfish Fever days and all that kind of stuff. They made one comment way back when that just always stuck with me. We fish old wood. Now there's a reason for that, and I'm just going to let you know. For a lot of fish, wood is a power element, period, but there's some wood that's better than other wood. Old wood, big old wood, will focus, will concentrate groups of fish. Different fish, different types of year, that type of thing. But it doesn't. But why old wood? Okay, if you take a river and you lay it, let's just say you knock down a green cottonwood, you lay it in there. Okay, now you've got a brand new tree laying in that water, right? You might have some fish coming upstream that are going to stop there. If you got caterpillars falling off the leaves, whatever, you might have some small channel stuff like that. But if you leave that tree there, it stays there for, we'll say, 2-3 years, whatever, and then eventually, hopefully 5-10 years, things begin to happen. The current starts washing out around the root ball. It starts washing areas out where branches on the bottom allow it to wash channels underneath that. It'll force water off of the bank and make a channel around the end. So now you have elements that have built themselves on that tree. So now that old tree has more power than a new tree. A big tree has more power than a little tree. If we take our rocks, a little rock like this again, what's this going to hold? Nothing, nothing. If you take a bunch of these, however, and you combine them, or you take big ones that are like the size of cars, boulders, now you have some power. If you connect them to other elements, you have a heck of a lot more power. It's just that simple. Okay? So the fourth element, the high-powered element, we have size and mass. It also has to have a relationship to a second and third element. Okay? That's how it gains power. For you as a fisherman, here's the tough part. All three of these elements have to be something that your species is looking for that day. If you're fishing crappie, you're going to be looking for a set of 3 elements. If you're fishing flatheads, you're going to be looking for 3 different elements. I'll guarantee it. If you're looking for northerns and muskies, again, it's going to be 3 different elements. Now, I know a lot of people some people go, wow, this just gets really complicated. Well, no, it really doesn't. It's just pretty simple. Once you look at a body of water this way, it just happens real easy. Once you understand what you're looking for, it becomes real easy. And people that say this is complicated, most of them are running around with $4,000 of electronics in the boat they're playing with all day. That's complicated. This is just common sense and understanding your water. And it gives you the ability to utilize your electronics more, to utilize your equipment more, and get into the fish. Okay? It's just kind of simple like that. It's not a big deal. Okay, we've gone through those. The other thing, you need to focus on what's there. A lot of people just don't do that. I would recommend to anybody, before you fish, even if you're sitting where you want to fish, take a look. What's happening? Is the water murky? If the water is murky, which now that's an element, you have muddy water. That's the difference, because you could have muddy water, you could have clear water, you could have rising water, you could have falling water, you could have a good current, you could have no current, all kinds of things. All of these will affect the fish in some way, and you really need to know what it is. I'll give you a real simple example, well, 2 examples. If you have a good strong current, it's going to position fish. That is going to be a deciding matter in a river. You're going to still want to connect other elements like maybe vertical ledges, channels, humps, whatever, current breaks. But that current is going to position the fish if it has a lot of power. Okay, and you locate the fish by connecting that other element to it. If you have muddy water, as an example, let's say the water is really stained. A lot of people don't understand that if the water is really stained, the fish will hold tighter to structure, especially bass. If the water is stained, they're visual, muskies, northern, same thing, walleye, same thing. They'll hug the bottom, they're going to hug the structure tighter. You need to put your placement that way. You need to get on it. If it's clear, they're going to chase further. They can then chase your bait and locate them, at a distance. Makes sense, right? But most people don't stop and look at that. They just don't pay attention to it. So you need to look at what's in front of you, make sure you got the elements for your fish, for your species, for your day, for your type of fishing. And the example there that I'm going to use is we do a lot of ultralight fishing. These are like 2-pound line class fish, 4-pound line class fish, and the 2-pound line class fish. The area we're fishing, we have to adapt to meet the equipment in this case. Normally you adapt your equipment to match the place you're fishing. Like if you're fishing heavy logs, that kind of thing, you need some heavy equipment. You need to horse the fish up and out. If you're fishing open water, you can get by with some light stuff. You don't want anything there that they can get wrapped up in. And that just makes sense, I think. That's just common sense. But a lot of people don't think about it. I'm going to give you some examples of some fish, some species here. Like I say, I don't know the species you're chasing. I don't know your body of water, so the examples I'm giving you here are what I find on the waters that I fish. Obviously, if I say, points and you don't have them, but you have humps, well, just kind of replace that with humps for your water. I mean, that's the thing you got to do. Okay. So we'll just talk about some walleyes for a minute, so you get some ideas. For walleyes, what do I look for when obviously the body of water. If I want to catch some fryers or I'm looking for a trophy, that gets picked immediately. Then when I'm on the water, boy, I'm losing my voice. When I'm on the water for them, if I can, I want wind blowing points right off the bat. If I'm in a river, obviously current breaks. If I'm in a small river around here and it's spring, I'm looking for low head dams because they come up river right in below those low head dams, and on the Missouri River up there, if they're running water, those fish move right up into the dam area also. Main lake, humps, basically humps. Or if you can get like a gravel bar out there, something like that, that's something I'm looking for. Underwater rock piles, underwater road beds with old bridges. If I can't find that stuff for walleyes, I'm going to probably go to some deep water weed beds and work that. Okay, now right here, I'm just going to tell you, when I go to a body of water, I want 4 structures. If I have 4 structures that I approve with what I want, okay, that'll last me all day. Why all day? I don't sit on those that long. I'll sit on a structure if it's a really good solid structure, half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depends how I feel about it, depends on the body of water, the population of fish, that type of thing. Like somebody's water, you sit for 20 minutes, you should have had a bite, or you just better leave, But I'll fish the 4 in the morning. I'll fish the 4 again in the evening because the fish move, the fish turn on, the fish turn off. Especially with like muskies and walleyes, you have very short windows where you're going to get on those fish. You miss the window, you could be on the best structure in the lake. You miss the window, the fish are sitting there staring at you and laughing, probably, Okay, so that would be it for walleyes. If I go into northerns, it's going to be a different thing. If I get into northerns, I'm looking for wind-blowing main lake points, as well as shoulders of bays. Like where you got a bay out here, and you got some bulrushes in the back, and the sides of that bay come out to meet the main lake. Right here where the shoulders, where the corners of those bays meet the main lake. This works really good on blue cats, on reservoirs also, drifting between the 2 points. Sometimes they'll go up shallow to feed in the shallower water on clam beds, mussel beds, whatever. And then they'll back out into that mouth of that bay area where it drops into the main lake, obviously. So that area, main lake humps with cover on them, okay, with cover for northerns. They're really an ambush fish. They do some open water, if the ciscos and some, fish like that are out there swimming suspended, northerns will join them some. But if you got to pick a structure, you want to pick something with cover, okay? Bay mouth, incoming water is always good for anything. These are all elements. They are part of that body of water for that day. And you need to consider them, okay? You just really do if you want to get the most out of it. Fishing is expensive and time consuming. And I don't have time. In fact, I'll just tell you here, I don't have time to waste. When I started doing this, gathering this information and proving it, by the way, back in 2002, long time ago, turn of the century, which is a weird thing to say, I was really into setting line class records, okay? It's just fun. It puts a lot of fun into it. It's a challenge. You have to locate a particular fish. You have to locate a particular size fish. You have to catch him on particular equipment. It's just cool. It's a hobby. You don't get rich doing it. But boy, I learned a lot. I cannot afford to go out and, chase a 15-pound northern on 2-pound line for a week. I don't have the money or the time. I can maybe spend a Saturday or a Sunday, that kind of thing. So when I go back, in that time frame back there, I had to know where I was going. I couldn't afford to make trips to Manitoba 5 times a summer. It just doesn't work. I don't have money like that or time like that. So that's how all this information came to be. And I guess I could say then that I tested it for 15, 20 years, and we've accumulated approximately 40 line class world records over like 8 and 10 species of fish. It does work. But like I said, it's not a magic wand. It's not a miracle work. You have to have some information of your own, and you have to take the time to assess the water, okay? Make sure you know what you're fishing. Okay, for channel cats, they're kind of a fun one. I love channel cats. We have a lot of them up here. We don't have a lot of blue cats up here, a few, but nice flatheads, not huge flatheads. I think my biggest is 52. I got a 45 this spring. Up here, that's a big fish. It is. That's a big flathead. Channel cats, a 20-pound, an honest 20-pound channel up here is a big fish, but there are some. You can catch them, Anyway, for channels, obviously, main flow current seams, wind-blown points, rocky shores with waves coming in on them, log jams in the rivers, windy points focus on the incoming side, where the waves are banging in or where the current is butting up. Bay mouths, channels, current seams below dams and riffles, obviously, current breaks. Drifting open water, midday. There's just a lot of things for channel. You guys know channels. There's a lot of areas you can do, but still, if you put 3 elements together, let's say that I got an incoming stream, okay? I got an incoming, I know what I'll do. On a reservoir, I found a structure that was just beautiful. This was for blue cats, but on a big reservoir, okay, man-made, right? So you have areas that get flooded. We found a bay, not on any maps. Well, the bay was, but what was in it wasn't. Went into this bay, and before they dammed it, there was evidently a creek flowing, into the back end of this bay and down into the main lake. And evidently also, somebody owned cattle, they dug a stock dam up in there about 50 yards from the drop into the main lake. So this water had 2 shoulders in it, a dugout, and then actually had a point that came down and butted into the one side of the stock dam, and a creek channel that flowed right into the stock dam and back out into the main lake. You talk about a power setup. I mean, you just, holy cow. We were fishing a tournament when we found that. And I'm going to tell you something else right now because of that. Don't get stuck. Okay. I have a friend, and he is a good friend, by the way. He would give me the shirt off his back, but I can't fish with him. He is stuck. Don't do it. His deal is fish are deep. They're deep. Okay. That's his thing. And when fish are deep, that's really a good thing. Okay. I mean, it is. But I'll tell you this right now, there are always shallow fish. Always. Some. There's always some shallow fish because that's where the food is. Main Lake is pretty much void, empty, no weeds, no nothing. Shorelines have a lot of stuff, including forage. Okay. But anyway, we had found this stock down. And in like 20 minutes, we were pre-fishing. 20 minutes, we had found, we hooked up on 4 nice blues. Not big, but nice, good, a good way to get into a tournament and then hopefully call, but nice fish. So we backed out. Well, the next day, we got a 30-mile-an-hour wind. We're in a 20-foot boat, and this lake is, what is it, probably 20 miles long, 15 miles long anyway. And the waves are coming down, they're 6 foot high. We're trying to drift, and we can't keep that boat under 2 miles an hour, and we're dragging a 30-pound anchor and an 8-foot drift sock, and my bait's floating 10 feet off the bottom out the back end of the boat, and the fish aren't chasing, and I couldn't get him to go back to the stock dam. Okay, it's his boat. That was his boat. I'm a guest. That's fine. I fished. We caught 2 little fish, but we could have done way better if we would have just gone back in there. So don't get stuck. Okay? Keep your mind open, keep your eyes open, look at what's around you and use it. Another example, we're up Caliper Lake at a resort, we're fishing northern. Came out, there's a little bay right out in front. And most of the people that stay there, that's where they go first place to cast, and then they work their way around the lake. Has a nice structure. Now, when I explain the structure, you need to understand structures are not limited in size or shape, okay? If the elements are connected, you can have a structure that's 2 miles long. You can have a structure that's 20 feet long. So if you drift, if you troll, whatever, you can do anything you want. You can find a structure to fit. If you're pulling plugs for walleyes, you can still find a structure. If you've got, say you got 2 points and you got a tree line in between them, or 2 points and a hump and a channel, you can work from those points through the hump, through the channel, through the timber, whatever, okay? And then when you locate fish, the nice thing is, then you know what they're relating to right now that day. If they're in the channel, then I would start focusing on elements that are attached to the channel. Then when you find the fish located or concentrated, you can just concentrate on that little area, okay? So you can fish any type. You can troll plugs, you can drift, you can do whatever on a structure. You just need to find the structure that fits your presentation, okay? And that structure will still benefit you just as much as somebody that's floating a bobber over a tree, okay? Okay. Flatheads. These are actually kind of my little favorite fish here. I don't know why, but they are. Time of year is an element, and with flatheads, that's very obvious. Walleyes, it's very obvious. Well, with any fish, it is. Spring, summer, fall, winter, every season does something different, and you need to adjust to the season. Okay, flatheads up here. Now, see, this is up here again. Where you are, maybe not. In the spring, our low head dams, the fish come up and pull up below them. It's like a pre-spawn feeding binge, and they'll stay there for 3 weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks. It's pretty easy pickings, and then they back down the river, okay? And they take up their summer grounds, in the log jams, in the holes along the riprap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? And right now about flatheads, I'm just going to tell you there's 3 kinds of structure that flatheads use, okay? The first one is a nursery. This is what the species uses, and I don't care where you are. This is what they do. There's a nursery. The nursery does you no good. It's basically like a root ball that's very tight, or riprap that's smaller rock, something the little fish get into. It can be under a little overhanging grass thing, whatever. It's a nursery. It can be a little one, it can be a big one. And the little fish go there. It doesn't do you as an angler much good. The second one, however, is kind of cool. That is called a staging structure. And flatheads use those. And I'm going to tell you right now about tracking flatheads electronically. Uh, a staging structure is something that all of us fish, that fish flatheads or cats, we'll just say the log jams, okay, to start with. It's a staging structure. The staging structure is where these fish, flatheads, go to hang out during the day. Now in the spring, they're active most of the day, but at the staging structure when the sun's up, you're going to have some flats always hanging out in the staging structure too. Okay, it can be, well, usually it's log jams. It can be bridge pilings. It can be a lot of things. Usually a little quieter water, or at least areas in that structure they can get away from. Cutouts on the banks. Cats, though, wood is the number one element. Okay, for flats, just is. Okay, so anyway, these fish will hole up, okay, on these staging structures, and they do, and I fish them. I like getting there just before dark, so I don't fall in the river trying to get set up. They get set up, and you catch, and you're fishing just above them, okay. You're catching fish coming out as they're coming out to feed, right? And real quick, like 9 o'clock, you get a bite. And this is cool, got a bite. We're going to knock them dead tonight, right? Okay. 10 o'clock, you get a bite, you miss him. We'll just cut it short. 12 o'clock, you get another bite, and you catch a nice 80-pounder. How's that? Anyway, but then after that, they quit. And you go, well, gee, what happened? They quit. Now, if you got a buddy like I got, Jason, he's on his cell phone. He's calling one of his friends 5 miles down the river, and he's going, hey, we're doing really good, and now they just stopped. And this guy will go, yeah, we got 4, and then they quit. They quit biting. They quit biting. If you know what flatheads do, okay, I do a seminar just on them too, but if you know what flatheads do, okay, they leave that staging structure and they go to the third structure, type of structure that they utilize, and that's a feeding platform. And with flatheads, it's usually going to be under 10 foot deep, just so you're aware of that. When they're feeding after dark, it's going to be about 10 foot deep or less. They like to strike up. They can't hit a fish that's 20 feet above his head. Okay, now this is warm weather stuff I'm talking about. Okay, but they might hold it up in 20 or 30 foot or whatever. That's why set liners, trot liners, they set them right along the banks, right on the edge of the log jam, because these fish are moving up that way. They're not out in the middle of the channels, not flatheads. Anyway, but then, you're going to go, well, but they're going to start biting again at sunrise, right? Well, so you stay there, and sunrise comes, 4:30, 5 in the morning, sun's coming up, and you catch a couple more. Well, I told you they're going to start biting again. They didn't start biting again. They simply came back from the feeding platforms. Flatheads are extremely high sight fidelic. They love their home. They will come back. In fact, fish that have been tracked electronically in this pattern, which is called the deal pattern, 24 hours, their feeding pattern. They're coming out of staging structures, they're going to feeding platforms, they're coming back. In that 24-hour period, they found that fish will go back to the same log jams they came out of when the sun comes up. They could have moved 3/4 of a mile upstream to feed. They will come back. They've tracked them to where they come back within 3 feet of where they started that evening. Okay, so yeah, at sunrise you're going to get a shot at them because they come back into that log jam. Pretty interesting. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of cool. That's your flatheads. So now, I told you that structure can be any size, okay, any species, any elements, but you have to locate the elements your species wants. Now you're going to say, well, what do I do with this? With this information, what do I do with this? Now, okay, one other thing I want to point out here, because there is a legitimate comment that comes up once in a while. I have had people talk to me and say, we fish with 10 rods down here. Okay, well, good. You're lucky. You're fortunate. You don't have to quite do this whole thing. You can, I wish I could pull it to a log jam and spread 6 rods out in front of it. Boy, that'd make my job easy. When you're fishing with 1 or 2 rods, you have to pick your spot. But I'll make a comment here. If you're fishing with 4, 5, 6 rods and you put as much thought in each of those rods as you do 1 or 2 rods to get it in the right spot, you're going to up your take. You're going to catch bigger fish. And if you use this information to pick your structures, you will up your better fish. You will start gaining on your average size fish. I can guarantee that. I've had people tell me, no way, this isn't going to work, this is not going to whatever. Yeah, well, I will promise you this. If you use this, you go out on the water and you do this, you're going to realize in very short order that this makes sense. Okay? That's all I got to say about it. So how do you put all this together? And then I'll end it. Okay? You've been really good. You've been patient. But I'm going to tell you how to use all this now. We've talked information and everything else. Let's say I'm going fishing Saturday. Maybe Wednesday, I'm going to extend my fishing trip. Maybe Wednesday, I'm going to call the game department. I already know what I want. I want a 20-pound flathead. I'm going to call them. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to find out what they have to say. This is information. I need information to make decisions. Okay? Then I am going to call bait shops, as many as I can. If I get 2 or 3 of those bait shops that confirm the same information, I'm going to pay attention to that. What end of the reservoir were they catching them on? Which reservoir, which river, what area on that river? A particular dam near a particular town, whatever. And I'm going to tell you one thing about bait shops. I used to own one a long time ago, and there's kind of a thing that goes around sometimes where people say, well, they aren't going to tell you. I'll tell you a secret. Bait shop owners want you to catch fish. When you ask them information, they will give you the best information they have. They want you to come back and buy stuff. Makes sense, right? The problem is they only deal with, normally only deal with information fishermen have told them. So all they can do is repeat what they've been told. So if you get some bad information from one, I don't think I'd be too fast to jump on him, because he's probably just repeating. He's trying. But that's why I say if you can get 2 or 3, okay, that match up with information, that's probably good stuff to listen to. Okay, so I've got my information. So that lets me know maybe what bait to use, maybe the depth, maybe what end of the lake, maybe what lake or river period, okay? And I want to know if something else is biting. Say I'm looking for flatheads on a reservoir, but they're saying, oh no, but God, they're catching a lot of 1-pound crappie. Well, I want to know that because, maybe I want to throw a couple dozen minnows in with me too when I go, just in case. Information is always good. It just is. So you've got the information, you've picked your lake, you got your equipment, okay? See, now this is where you're prepping yourself to make good decisions, okay? Check the time of day. Are they biting in the morning? Are they biting in the evening? Cloudy, sunny, where do you have to be? What time of day? What depth? What makes it easy, say you talk to people and they're all saying, yep, on the north end of Oahe, or the north end of, wherever, north end, or below the dam, or here, wherever. You just eliminated, half of the lake, or half, a large portion of river that you don't have to think about. I'm going to say one thing about depth, because I mentioned that earlier, and then I'll quit and I'll take some questions if anybody has any, okay? But with depth, on a river, water temperature and depth, the water is continually mixing, at least on our rivers. So what the surface temp is, you're not going to find much water that's a different temp anywhere. Not on our rivers. Maybe on yours, okay? on lake. So the depth doesn't matter. It's more just the structures you're fishing. Okay, that's pretty, and the season. That's pretty much it. On the reservoir, say I don't know what depth. Okay, I know I want to be up in the North Lake. There's like the Kansas River's flowing into it, and I want to be on there, except that's all silted in. So I'm going to go to secondary structures within a mile of that incoming water. Okay, but then I'm going to put some 3-element structures together in that area. See what I mean? You have that information. But if you don't know depth, I'll tell you a secret. If you don't know depth on a lake or reservoir, go mid-depth to start. Unless you know different, obviously. If you don't know, go mid-depth. Say you got a 50-foot deep lake, whatever, right? I'm going to look for structures in that 20-25 range to start. Depending on the season, now if it's early season, they're going to be up shallow, that kind of thing. That's different. But then you know that. But if we'll just say it's July, whatever, I don't know, I'm going to go mid-depth, 20-25 feet. Okay, and structures. If I don't find fish there, I'm going shallow. Now, a lot of people would say, go deep, go deep. I don't. I go shallow because that's where the food is. Look at the makeup of any body of water. The shoreline is about the biggest element you're going to run into. It has all kinds of other things attached to it and a lot of forage using it. Okay? There is always some shallower fish. Then if I can't find them, I'm going to go deep, obviously. But like I said, the 4 structures, if I know the lake, I want 4 structures in that area. Okay, say in that 20-25, or 15-25. Okay. Now, in the very beginning, I asked you a question. What now? What do we do? That doesn't work. Same thing. Now you find your 4 structures or a couple structures in shallower water. But if you use the same method of picking your structures, think about this. You have elements that have power, that connect to fish, that fish will concentrate on. Why wouldn't you just continue doing that? Just change your depth, pick your structure. And you can do all of this before you get there. I saw a show actually last night where a gentleman was using like Google Maps, and he was researching his water, and he was using paper. You can use paper maps, navionics, whatever before you go. You can find these depths and like channels and roadbeds and all humps and cuts and holes and everything else before you even leave your house. What a neat way to pre-fish. I mean, you can go down and spend a week trying to pre-fish it, or you can sit out in your driveway and drink coffee and pre-fish. Believe it or not, it works. All right? I hope I gave you some information that you can use. It will work for you if you just practice it a little bit. It takes practice like anything, but if you practice it just a little bit, you'll find that it changes the way you approach your body of water and your species of fish. And I wish everybody luck. And if anybody's got some questions at this point, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
Appreciate that, sir. Excellent information. Definitely worth listening to, as always. I think Murillo said that you were talking about Creo catfishing last night. Was looking at Google Earth Pro.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Google Earth Pro is a perfect way. It gives you information from now, and you can go back years to see how that water level has changed, if anything has changed inside of that.
Yep. Yeah.
Now,
and I was impressed by that. That was a neat segment.
Yep. Now, I've got one question for you. It kind of goes along with that. Is what kind of information do you use before to pre-fish? What sources do you go to?
Navionics and my game and fishing parks.
Gotcha.
That's my main two. Navionics, I can dissect a lake really well. It has most of the lakes that I fish on it, obviously. Game fishing parks. Now, they're not in the area where I am. If I'm driving 100 miles, I want to talk to a biologist out there. Don't call your guy in Colorado if you're going fishing in Montana.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Yeah. and they'll tell you, game fishing parks guys, if you're nice to them and you respect them, they're more than happy to help you most of the time. I've never ran into trouble
Yeah.
anyway.
And usually they're pretty good because they have to know this stuff. They have to know what their
Yep.
areas are doing because that's part of their job.
Yeah, well, they do creel surveys,
Hmm.
and they do test nettings. They know populations. They know where there's big fish and where there aren't.
Hmm.
That kind of thing. They do.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you.
Now, when you're talking about structure fishing, I'm still waiting on people to get some information
Sure.
questions there. Talk about structure fishing, and I don't know if I can't remember if I don't think you talked about it, but um, the difference between newer structure and older structure.
Yep.
If you find structure that looks like new, how long do you think, with all the knowledge that you went through, the testing and stuff that you've done so far over these years, how long do you need to wait before that is actually going to start holding anything? It'd be worth looking at.
Okay. That'll depend a little bit on if it's a lake or a river. If it's a river, a lot of times 1 year will do it. If you get some flood water in the spring, it'll cut
Mm-hmm.
a tremendous amount of holes out. It'll dig the bank out. It'll push stuff around. It'll pile up stuff. If it's in a lake, I'd say 2 to 3 years in the lake.
2 to 3 years. Okay.
You want some algae growth. It's all like the
Mm-hmm.
the food chain. You
Yes.
want some algae growth. You want some freshwater shrimp. You want some leeches. You want everything. Then you get the minnows and the shad and everything else. And it takes a couple of years to get built up for that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe first year you'll catch some fish, but it won't get good until 2 or 3 years
Mm-hmm.
down the road.
Now, a lot of times, like on our lake here in Kentucky, in southeastern Kentucky, it's Lake Cumberland. I have
Yep.
found fishing off the bank. I found uh, limbs or branches with those sacks of like,
Yep.
I guess they're
Eggs.
like kind of like eggs or something on them.
Yep. Jelly kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. Toads
Now,
basically.
when that comes to fishing, is that good or is that bad? That to trying to fish around those areas to have that.
It's not bad.
Okay. Now,
I'm
is
not
there
going to
any
say it's
benefit?
necessary. Um, there could be. Depends on your forage fish. If you have forage fish in there that will eat on that,
Mm-hmm.
then yes. Like little bullheads, if you're like in a lake with a lot of little bullheads, they'll munch on that.
Okay.
I don't think shad really do. Shad are more into
No.
the plankton kind of stuff. The little bullheads would, little perch would possibly. So that would kind of depend on your forage because you want to draw the bait fish. You know,
Yeah.
a big blue isn't going to go in there looking for that.
Okay.
You know, but if it brings
Gotcha.
a bait fish in, then he will.
Okay.
Yep.
Because a lot of people
So,
around here, don't have no clue what it is because they don't really pull it out of the water or see it until like what we have here is winter pulling, to where the
sure.
water drops really really low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then they actually
Well,
see that stuff.
yeah. There's like colonies of different kinds of little fish or little
Hmm.
things that do that. So it may not even be eggs,
Hmm.
because I don't even know what you'd call them, zooplanktons or
Something, yeah. And I
yeah,
looked them up, and it said like the what really loves them is like salmon. But
yep.
we don't have
Okay.
salmon here. I mean, we're too far.
Yeah.
We're too far south to have anything like that.
Sure. Well, and that's where it depends on your forage fish. What's going to
Hmm.
go in there and eat them? Little
Yeah,
bullheads, I would guarantee it would go in and eat them.
yeah. I don't think
So
we have
if
any.
you
I don't
got
think
'em,
we have any in our lake.
well, then yeah, you may have nothing. Maybe little
Yeah,
perch might. You know.
yeah. Turtles.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
turtles.
Whatever.
Turtles might eat on them.
Whatever. Yep.
Everybody's saying very informational talk. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Murillo says, thanks again for your time. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for the encouragement. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of the audience. Which is one of the things is Catfish Conference is a lot of people can hear you talk there because you've done a few talks there too. And
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
that's where I think that's when I met, or not met you, but that's when I first got introduced to you, was a
Yep.
conference.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but when I did that, then I started researching you more and more and got to know you more through all your information. And one thing is like you said, the Amazon thing with your any fish, any water talk. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
now
Yeah.
is
That. Go ahead.
is that still available for
Oh,
anybody
sure.
to? Okay,
Sure. Yeah, as a download.
that's
I
done.
don't. We don't. Obviously, we don't do DVDs or thumb drives anymore. That's kind of old
Hmm.
fashioned. And this video was first published, 10 years ago. So
Hmm.
it's a little outdated. I mean, as far as quality, just because you're using a certain format camera back then, I
Yeah,
mean, different now. The information's the same.
gotcha.
But yeah, that's on Amazon. There's a Channel Cat uh, video on there that's really good. We nailed some really big channels, shallow water channel cats. That was a good one. We had a lot of fish, 10 to 20 pounds, in
Gotcha.
like 3 foot water. And I will, if I can throw a plug in here.
Yep, go for it.
This winter we are submitting to Amazon 4 new shows. We're doing species. We're going to start doing species specifics. So
Nice.
there will be a flathead video, strictly flatheads. It'll be seminar style, only we will be using green screens for photographs. So but there'll be a flathead, there'll be a channel cat, there'll be a walleye, and there'll be a redo of the Any Fish, Any Water video. And they can be rented for like, well, I don't know, $2.99, I think it is, or they can
Hmm.
be bought for $6, something like that. So whatever. But they're fun. Amazon, I know some people don't like Amazon, but I'll tell you they're real good to do business with. And
Oh, absolutely. I've
they
made them
can
I've
get,
made them rich for the last couple of months
yeah,
because that's pretty much about all I bought off of is Amazon.
yeah. My wife should own stock.
Yeah, that's what I was
She
saying.
really
We
should.
should too, as much as
Yeah,
Amazon we buy
yeah,
from them.
yep, yep.
But yeah, I appreciate the time and that you've took out. Hopefully, we can have you back on here shortly and do another one of these and go after a different topic.
Sure. Whatever you
Definitely.
want to do, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your listeners. And
Yeah.
yeah, if anybody has questions, you can find me on Facebook.
Yep.
If anybody that's listening to this, if you have a question and you want to know something, go ahead. Let me know. Send me a message.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And for
Yep.
those that are that will come back and actually watch this after we're done, yeah, definitely. If you have any questions that you didn't get asked
Yep.
now, definitely hit him up on Facebook under Ted Ellenbecker, uh,
Yep.
and he
Yeah.
will
Please
be
do.
gladly to answer
Yep.
them.
Yep. Be glad to. That's what I do.
But yep, I appreciate it. We were getting into that last bit of the show here, and like I said, with everybody, we appreciate you coming on and hanging out. And
Not a problem.
we got Roger from Muskrat. He goes, "Hey, I know that guy."
There you go.
Appreciate you, Roger, coming in, and well, we will close it off here, and appreciate you. And
Yep.
hopefully, like I said, hopefully we'll get you back on, and we'll go over something else. So, guys, appreciate you all. Make sure you hit that thumbs up on the way out, and keep on watching out for some other shows. We've got next week. We've got our good buddy Backlash Fisherman on. Be one of his, I think, probably first time he's been a guest on any of the catfishing shows. So that'd be interesting talking to him and his wife from Coastal Water. So hopefully y'all check us out next Wednesday right here, and we will close it out with our closure.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, appreciate you all.